Ren. I'm an artist, and I'm interested in Kabbalah. I've always been, but I haven't. Mostly like about angels and but I'm very interested in the financial aspect. Yes. I have no idea about that much.
Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Lam, and I'm friends with Guy. And we basically try to put this whole gathering together with the rabbi. I do social media marketing and advertising, among other things. But I'm happy that you all were able to make it, and we hope to all learn, or at least meet other people that can help you, whether it be spiritually or financially, or however possible that we can, and obviously learn a lot of other things while being here.
Thank you. So my name is Guy. I know a lot of people that will be in the class, and when I met the rabbi, I was always curious about Kabbalah, and what I noticed is that a lot of people in the spiritual arena have always suffered financially, and I never understood that. They should be the last ones suffering financially. And what I thought is there's something missing, right? And why I'm putting this class together, or helping us and helping the rabbi, is to try to mitigate that, try to find out what is the reason, right? Because there's something that's a bit off there. And I really want to explore that, and I want to see if we can come to some resolution with the rabbi's help, right?
Wow. What he said. But my name is Quentin Meziton. I'm from Queens Village, Queens, New York. I actually just got, my friend sent me this link 6-7 hours ago, and I was just like, okay, and I read the little bios on the Eventbrite, and I was like, never heard of it, don't know what to expect, but it looks so awesome and cool, so I just canceled everything today to be here for 5 hours.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. I work in finance, so I do insurance options and retirement plans, and that's fun, but you guys probably can make it funner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hola.
Hola. Perfect timing.
This is the friend who sent me the email.
Oh, great.
What floor is it?
Sixth floor.
Hi, my name is Rafael. I'm an art director, designer. I do design work, conceptual work. I'm really interested in systems that reunite wisdom. Have been studying human design for a while. I'm seeing the Kabbalah, and I'm really interested in like all the knowledge that and the connecting points that could transform the reality in a more tangible way. I'm really into aesthetics, so it's almost like a design-oriented transformation, but with a structure, with wisdom behind.
Interesting. I'm Helen. I'm an entrepreneur, and I also am a healer. So I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I've done also products to help to heal people. And so that's basically, I thought this was interesting, having financing and spirituality, and how to balance all that.
My name is Tiana. I am an events coordinator. It just so happens to be spiritual type events. Definitely something I'm interested in, sort of spirituality, finances. I think it touches us all, especially the spiritual crowd, as Guy mentioned. It's often a bit of a disconnect, and it's good to sort of come to events like this and try and figure that out. So it's good to be with you all. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
My pleasure. Okay, so I'll tell you about myself now. I guess we'll start with this. That's actually the first thing on my list. Before I start, I have a list of 7 pages, a lot of different things. I'm available till who knows when. Today, we can continue talking, and as long as we're learning and building, I'm here. More than that, if people really connect, I'd like to say that as a rabbi, I'm open to speaking, making long-term relationships. In general, rabbis, we do free work, so to speak. As far as personal help or anything else, in that way, as a spiritual guide, that's basically what I look at myself as. I'll explain to you a little bit of my history. That's what, and I saw that there was a little bit of a disconnect, so to speak, between Kabbalah that was being taught and in the modern American world, and Kabbalah that I learned. And I learned in a certain place, and in Jerusalem, in Israel, with the the big master Kabbalists that taught from generation to generation. And I feel like there's a lot that we can benefit from, the whole world can benefit from, and I'd like to to help out. With that, I basically am trying to start a Kabbalah center, a different type. That everyone has their own flavors. A religious, as far as religious, meaning according to the laws of the Torah and the ideas of the Jewish teachings that we'll see in the Torah, that will help reach out to other people, to everyone in the whole world, to be able to help them with basically all their problems in every single situation, Jews and non-Jews included. That's a very important topic. Okay, so you want to maybe the people that came in before I start.
Three people.
We just
Peter, we're introducing ourselves and why we're interested in this class and the possibility.
Okay, yeah. My name's Peter Liu. I'm colleagues, with these lovely folks right here, and I'm in finances and media and building business, and I have long time focus on meditation and spiritual practice. So I was attracted by what Guy told me about this, bringing together basically a concept of prosperity as a spiritual principle.
Yeah. So good morning, my name is Miguel Bernard, and I definitely like the concept of the law of attraction, and I believe that the spiritual essence in terms of what I do is help people get out of debt and save money. So money is like a mindset thing, so I like to help people kind of get to another level, and I feel like I can empower them in terms of helping them understand how to use it as a tool that can get them to where they want to go, instead of being manipulated by that tool. So
I like that very much. Just by the way, that's very much in line with what I think that we're going to be, we're going to be going in that direction. I mean, also what you said was very. I mean, just by the way, what you said is like how I've been studying Kabbalah for the past 20 years. Like very much, that's what attracted me in Kabbalah, wisdom of the whole world, like unbelievable clarity and everything with the system. That was very important. And everyone else, I mean, that mentioned things. It's we're gonna see, what we have to say, and we'll hopefully everyone will get something from it.
The guy got me to come here from. Well, I just got back from Dallas. He's like, don't even go home. Come over here. Came from the airport. He landed an hour ago.
Really?
He's here now.
Wow. Okay.
Hi, my name is Viviana Lam, and yes, I'm part of Miguel's association as well, and I'm also the CEO of NYC Assistant. It's a company that it's assistance on the go. So if you ever need an assistant, please call me. Give me information. And yes, and I love everything about spirituality, energy, because I believe that we transmit energy just by our presence. So
Right.
I'm very interested in learning a little bit more.
Okay, very good, very good. Wait, so before I'll tell you a little more about myself, but basically the way I structured, at least in my notes, and we'll see how it goes in reality, but I have information that we're going to study about the spiritual realms, the spiritual world, spiritual energies and powers, and then practice. So one's like more abstract. The next level is kind of how it affects our world and how it comes into our world in a way that we can interact with it. And the third one is going to be meditations and other practices that we could do to actually affect our surroundings in a way that's going to be beneficial to us and our external surroundings. Okay, so with that, we'll start, I guess. If I somehow finish all 7 pages of notes, we could go through things and we'll talk, whatever it is. We'll have a lot of interesting things, I'm sure. Okay, a little history about myself. I grew up in California, mostly. I was born in Winnipeg. I grew up in California. I moved to Israel when I was 14. And when I was 14, I somehow skipped through high school and went to college. And I studied computers until I was 15 and a half around. I dropped out of college to get a job in a high-tech firm building a software multiprocessor for graphics, which was like, I'm now 38, and that was when I was 16, so it was a while ago. It was like the first multiprocessor graphics company in the, it was like a big idea. Nobody actually did it yet, and we didn't do it either because, and then they flopped. But I was working there for like 2 years, and then when 18 is when my life changed completely. I was in the Hebrew Bar-Ilan University in Israel, and I was so I have background in sciences and physics a little bit and other things. I have familiarity with the modern world, although I've basically been hiding away in Israel for the past since 13. I just started traveling a little bit like a year or two ago to start teaching and seeing how I could get the teachings out. And while I was basically with some friends in in a different university, I was sitting down with them, and one guy said, "Hey, look at this book. This book talks, telling me about the future of the world, how the world is when the Messiah is going to come, and how the world is going to go through different formations of upliftingness. That this world here, the way we see it, is very corporeal, is very physical, and like the world is not meant to be like that ultimately, and ultimately will be a much more spiritual world, and we're going to move in." And I looked at the book. I'm like, is this some kind of like unreliable source, because there are a lot of, personally, I'm not going to mention names, and I don't want to, I'm not coming out to say negative things, about anybody else, but there are many, I would say maybe most of the Kabbalah that is accessible in the online or in other places like that in English. As a general rule, from what I've seen, it's at best misinterpreted or misexplained at best. Sometimes worse, very bad practices come out of it. I'm saying this from, again, we're talking about Kabbalah, not other, other studies, other spiritual studies. But I would have to say, and I'm sure everyone tries to say this, but I have a real direct line from the Kabbalists, from, if anyone knows the names, like Rav Kaduri, the famous Kabbalist who used to do, miracles. He's one of the, I would say, most famous Kabbalists, and other Kabbalists in Jerusalem, like the center of Kabbalah in our generation. And I learned from the straightest, and I would say I'm a straight arrow, 100% religious, orthodox, who keeps all the laws. Even teaching Kabbalah to non-Jews is a discussion that how it's done and why it's done and what we're doing here. It's a little bit out of the scope here, but it's something that I'm doing within the bounds of the Jewish law. And many people, they break the bounds of the Jewish law, and then they also break the bounds of the spiritual law also, and then you're already not... there was once a story about so we'll get to it later. I'm basically, in studying Kabbalah, it has to be done, it's a spiritual practice, has to be done very appropriately within the rules of the Torah, the teachings of the Bible, and Kabbalah, as we're going to see, I'm going to explain later, how it's the deeper side of the Torah, and they go hand in hand. And when a person were to practice just Kabbalah without the appropriate actions, then he would be like studying ethics without being ethical. So there's a story about a certain ethics teacher in university who was caught having some improper relationships with some of his students. And when they approached him, he said, I said, what do you want? They said that you're an ethics teacher. Like, why are you doing bad things like that? He said, listen, I teach ethics, but does that mean if a mathematician teaches math, he becomes a triangle? It's like, that's not like, that's how he looked at it. He says, I teach ethics. Kabbalah is the same thing. You're not going to be able to teach Kabbalah. It's impossible for a religious Jew. Now, a non-Jew, I'm going to, just getting into my little site, a non-Jew has very minimal obligations as far as action. And therefore, the Kabbalah that we're teaching here has very, very little obligation as far as your actions in the physical world. Mostly it's like, don't kill anyone, don't steal, with some basic things, don't do bad. We're going to speak about that a little bit later, how to connect, but that's not the point here. But as a Jew, it's very, if you see a Jew who says he's Jewish and he does not keep the laws, he cannot really be attaining spiritual levels on a spiritual realm through Kabbalah. It can't be. It's impossible. The only way, this is the teachings of Kabbalah, I'll mention the big name of the Arizal, who is the front runner of and the main teacher of the Kabbalah that is taught today in the religious areas and in also all the Kabbalah centers. It's all basically the Arizal was the one that like opened up the science, so to speak, of Kabbalah, and he explained it in such a clear way that there have been people that added to it, but this was like the clearest. So he says very clearly that if a person is a Jew, is doing the Kabbalistic practices and not acting in a Jewish way, then he will actually come to impure places. A non-Jew, again, has very little strings attached. Like, you don't really have to do anything. As long as you don't do anything bad, you're able to connect to the spirituality and to the light of the infinite light that we're going to talk about. And it's for a Jew, it's just a little bit harder. Okay, so when I looked at this book in this college, and I saw that it was written by the rabbi, the famous rabbi, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who's a very who's basically, I call him like my rabbi in Kabbalah, so to speak. And all of my many of my teachings are based on his outlook on Kabbalah. And he was a super holy person. And when I realized that, like I said, hey, this is an authoritative book on Kabbalah, and it was actually translated in English by Eric Kaplan, and it was very nice. It's called the Way of God, I think. And I started reading it. I would say it's more like an introduction to Kabbalah. It's not actual, but it has some very important things in it. And when I started reading this, I was hooked, basically. I read one book after the next. When I started hearing about his life and other things that he used to go through, his rabbi said about him, the Moshe Chaim Luzzatto lived around 400 years ago, and his rabbi testified about him that when he was 13, he knew all of the writings of the Arizal, which is about, I have at home, all the writings about this many books, right? Filled with like little writing, and it's all very, very deep and completely spiritual. He said he knew all that off by heart. Not only did he know all that off by heart, but obviously he knew all the rest of the Torah, because as a religious Jew, he has to be very familiar with all the Torah before he starts studying Kabbalah. For a non-Jew, it's not true. You do not have to know all of the Bible. You don't have to read the Bible necessarily. You have to know some principles about about faith and other things like that. Very, very simple things. And for so he said he knew all these things, and he knew it all off by heart. And by the time he was 18, he was doing certain meditations and practical kosher Kabbalistic meditations. We're going to do some in this class together. Not the ones that he was doing, but other ones. And he fell asleep in the middle of meditation, and he heard a voice. And this voice was basically when a person does good deeds, the good deeds create spiritual powers, spiritual angels, and other things like that. These angels one can communicate with to get information for the future or other things like that. Witchcraft and other evil things that are not within the discussion here, would sometimes people do sins in order to create evil powers and connect to that. That is completely forbidden. I'm pretty sure even for non-Jews, but I'm not going to decide. We're not speaking about law here. But this is not, I would certainly suggest for everyone not to do these things. We try to do good deeds and attach ourselves to the good deeds, create angels. And he created one of the angels with his meditations, with his good deeds. He created this angel, and the angel came to him and said, if you do these and those meditations, then you'll be able to see Elijah the prophet, which is one of the very important stages in Kabbalistic meditation, where you actually get to see the prophet, or he communicates with you in some way. And then, and he did that, and then Elijah the prophet came and revealed to him more secrets and more things. He says, you keep on doing these, and he gave him a list of things he's supposed to do to perfect his personal soul. And then he was able to go to a place in heaven where all of the holy people from Adam until his generation, he was able to speak to all of them openly, like we're sitting here today. And I was reading this, and I was like, you know what? I have to make a decision here. Like, is this guy normal? Like, is this guy crazy? Like, they didn't have LSD in those days, so that's out of the question, So I was like, I was reading his books, and his books are the most logical, intelligible, systematic, explained system of Kabbalah that at least I know. It was my first book, but they certainly, I still feel that way today. And I had to make a decision, and I decided after it was a year process, kind of studying, maybe it's from 17 to 18 when I was reading these books, and I realized that this is no joke, and me as a Jew, I got to take my life seriously, and I'm gonna study Torah. Torah for a Jew is one of the biggest mitzvahs, the biggest commandments, and many ultra-Orthodox religious people, they spend all their time studying. So I was in that world, in that place, and I felt this is what God wanted me to do, and I felt a tremendous, obviously, we'll speak about it later, how you're supposed to know what God wants you to do and how to connect to good deeds in your life. I felt that this was possibly my purpose. And I started studying, and as the years went by, I did find, that this seems to be where I'm going in life. That was like a tremendous turning point in my life, and I feel that people that study Kabbalah seriously, and it's not the study. The study is very could be like studying ethics. Very interesting. There is so much in Kabbalah. It covers so many systems of every single aspect of the world. You could get lost in the study, and that's a mistake. In Judaism, we're going to speak about it later. We want to combine the physical aspect, which is our actions, also, with the spiritual aspect, and combining that is really what humans are all about. We are a soul and a body. We're a fusing of spiritual and physical. In other, religions, they have different ideas about this. This is what Kabbalah teaches. We're going to get in to explain how this is a fundamental teaching that is like the most important thing. So right now, basically, I've been living in Jerusalem, studying Kabbalah, and also the other aspects of the revealed Torah, which is Talmud and all sorts of other aspects. I'm not. My main job is not to deal with other things, but as the rabbis teach, in order to be well versed in Kabbalah, for a Jew to be versed in all the aspects of Kabbalah, a person has to also have very well big versings, be very clear on also the other aspects of the Torah, which is the Talmud and other and keep the law we spoke about. Okay, so now let's discuss what is Kabbalah. But does anyone have any questions or anything I said or about me or something? No?
Just quick, what was the name of the gentleman you were speaking about who was doing the visualizations, right?
The meditations?
He was doing the meditations and he could communicate with Elijah. What was his name?
Ramchal or Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato.
Okay, maybe I have to ask you later.
Yeah.
That's spell.
Yeah, right. I could write it for you, and it's that's like he has some basic. He has a whole story about how he started teaching Kabbalah after the false Messiah came around. About 50 years before him, or 100 years before him, I'm not exactly sure. There was a false Messiah who did unbelievable miracles, and this is important just as understanding of the powers of spirituality and the idea of what Kabbalah can do. This person was a holy rabbi, and he was very, very high level in spirituality. Some say he was very close to being the level of the Messiah himself, but he was so holy that at a certain time a certain spirit came into him to test him, to see if he was going to be really sincere and straightforward, and he fell in that, and he did all sorts of miracles with the power of evil and because listen, sometimes big people can fall in big ways. Like sometimes I come here, I'm like, I hear numbers of people that are doing big businesses, and if they were to sell everything today, they would be in debt $50 million. I was like, I can't even, I live in a house, like a little apartment the size of this room, maybe a little bigger, like I can't be in debt $50 million, but this guy's running a big business, and it seems like, so sometimes big people can fall in very big ways. That's just life, that's life, and it's not a reason to stay away. It's the Kabbalists teach that we jump into things, and we have to perfect ourselves spiritually. That is the solution to our happiness in this world and in our spiritual world. That's just the way the worlds work. Now, let's talk about what Kabbalah is.
You guys want to, if you can't see, maybe you can come here, this side, whatever you think.
Well, no, it's not. I'm not.
This one?
Not ready. No. No.
It's
not. I have a different video, and I think I should translate it in English. And it's not. I'm not going to show it here because that's like a 5-minute. What I did was some of my works was basically I summarized the system of the Arizal, from of the Arizal's teachings from the beginning to the end. It's a little bit complicated to explain, but in the spiritual realm, there's what's called a metaphor. A lot of things are given over in a metaphoric way. If you just hear the metaphor and you don't hear what I don't know how you say in English. In Hebrew, it's called a metaphor. How do you say the meaning of the metaphor, right? Then you got basically very little, sometimes maybe nothing. I taught, basically, I summarized the whole system. The system is a technical system, which if you don't know what the meanings of the things are, you're basically going to be learning, like, they call it spiritual plumbing in the Kabbalah sense. In Kabbalah, in where I am, like people that study this type of method, they study all the technical systems, but they don't know what it means, and they don't know how it has to do with us. The Ramchal teaches that the drive of the neshama, of the soul, is to learn these teachings in a way that applies to us. So we understand the system, and we understand how it applies to us. So the system could be like a very technical, schematics. Maybe you've seen these types of things in building plans or other things like that. You have no idea what's going on. Once there was a rabbi, one of the famous rabbis in Israel. His name was Rav David Abu Chatzera. He spoke about his father, who was a complete spiritual master. Once, famous story, once in England, a child was kidnapped, and they went to the Baba Sali, the holy rabbi, which was the grandfather, whatever, the grandfather, and they said, help us find our child who was kidnapped in England. And the Baba Sali, this rabbi said, go to my son. He could see very well. He has good vision. So they went to his son, and they said, your father told that we should come to you. My kid was kidnapped in England, and this happened in Israel. So the Baba Meir, who was the son of the Baba Sali, he took out a paper, and he started drawing. And he said, here, you go down this street, and you make a left over here, and you'll see a car that looks like this, and you go down here, and inside that building, that's where your son is. And he gave it to him. And apparently, I didn't verify this, and it really doesn't make so much of a difference about this particular story. I heard that it is verified. You could find in the police records in England that there was such a story where the rabbi came and they basically guided the police how to get to the child. But that was this rabbi. A different time, somebody came to him, the same rabbi, and Baba Meir, and the one who saw in England from here, and he came to him he wanted a blessing for his business plans, and he brought this diagram of the building of the business he was a construction worker, and he was building a building, and he brought the plans out to the rabbi, and he asked the rabbi, he said, can you bless me for these, for the plans? And the rabbi said, you know what, this you should build first, and this you shouldn't build until the building's completely finished, and this you should do like that. And the man said, thank you very much. I have your blessing? He's like, yeah, I have your blessing, thanks. And he wrapped up the papers and he went. He totally forgot about this building first, and the porch he said he was supposed to build after the whole building was complete. And he wasn't really paying attention. I was like, what does the rabbi know about building? He went on, just because I mentioned the schematics of the Kabbalah and teachings, he went back home and he built the building. And he did not pay attention. He built in the normal way of classic building methodologies, and it ended up being that the police, the government, I don't know what it's called, the government that's involved in the city, they got very upset with him for making the porch stick out like that, and they fined him for all sorts of different things. And if he were to build the whole building first, and then he got his permission, from the government, then build the porch, then he would have been just fine. He went back to the rabbi, to the son. And he said, how does your father know all these things? And he said, do you think that my father understood the plans? It's not true. He didn't understand the plans. He didn't know. He wasn't even, he was connected in a spiritual way that he understood what should be done. He didn't understand what every number was and what all these things were. It's not that he got into the physicality. This is very, very, high levels, just because we're mentioning the details of things, the schematics. But in the study of Kabbalah, we have to understand the system, like we're going to study soon. And this is what I made these videos on. Now, what I'm trying to do is go through the system step by step and explain what each thing means. Just to give you an idea, I have an hour-long class in Hebrew, which I plan to translate into English, which discusses the system from beginning to end, very, very in short, like really, really intense. You're welcome to just flip through the videos to see what it looks like. And you can see on my YouTube channel, Davin613. And we're going to be discussing basically a whole, as much as we can about the first, 10, 20 seconds, like a very, very short piece. Because the point is not to understand, to get a lot of technical details, you don't know how to use it. The point is to get into something, to experience it, to live it, to use it, and for that to uplift you. Okay, so what's the
YouTube channel?
DAVEN 613. DAVEN 613. And again, right now it's mixed up with all sorts of different things. Anything like I might have done my whole life, I might have put up there.
Davin 613?
Yeah. Davin means to pray, in Hebrew, and 613 is the amount of Jewish commandments there are. So it was a good Gmail account to get. When Gmail opened up, I was there having those accounts. Yeah. Okay. So first, let's define what is Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? So Kabbalah really is the study of everything that God did. I'm going to call, just for clarity, I call God Hashem. Hashem is it's a Jewish word. It means the name. I'm not going to describe here in the class why we refer to God as the name, but that's what I'm going to be calling him. Also, I don't want people to, maybe it could help you with a new understanding maybe of what God is, because we're going to learn about that, and how to connect to his light. This is not something okay. So understanding how everything was created and done, and how everything came from the original creator, which we're going to explain and define as clearly as possible soon, and how it was all a big master plan to bring for ultimate perfection. This world was not created to build big buildings in Manhattan and some of them fall down and all sorts of evil people do bad things and everyone's like, that's not what the purpose of the world was. We're going to see later. God created a good world. God is good. We're going to see and define these things later. And we're going to learn, again, just these are very important principles, because the first principle that we're going to speak about, which is like the first page in the Kabbalah books, is about this, this idea, how we connect, what the connection is between the light of the Creator and us, and how we bring that light into our lives. Okay, so that's basically people, when they're lacking in their lives, they have, they feel like there is no master plan. Connecting to this master plan in a way we're going to see of cognizance and in a way of knowledge, learning, and understanding, then we're going to actually strengthen it. We're going to see later. We're going to strengthen our relationship with the master plan. And in involvement and in participation with the master plan, since the master plan is ultimate perfection, ultimate good, we also associate and bring this ultimate perfection, ultimate good into our own lives, into our own hearts. And we're going to see later something which is, I would say, magical. I don't like to use the word magic, but in Kabbalah, there's the theoretical study, there's the theoretical study, there's the meditative practices where people are kind of working on themselves and internally perfecting themselves, Kabbalistically, spiritually, and moving forward. And then there's affecting the outside world. Sometimes affecting the outside world could be the toughest thing in the world, because there are many factors involved. There are other people, there's, destiny. We're going to see there's destiny, that each person has their own star sign, their own, their own lot in life, their own reincarnations. They have to fix all sorts of things. And sometimes there are certain aspects that may be hard or impossible to change, but the point is not to change something, but the point is to bring life and energy into everything that we're doing. So that's the study of Kabbalah on a practical sense. There's theoretical, there's working on ourselves, personal meditation, and there's meditation on outside sources in order to affect those things. So yeah, that's what Kabbalah is going to be teaching us, hopefully, in general. All of the study of Kabbalah should be, if you didn't gain something practical from a Kabbalah class, in general, you should reconsider. That's not what Kabbalah is about. Kabbalah is not about saying magical names, certainly not names of Hashem, names of God. These things are taught in other places. It's completely dangerous and wrong. It's just a misconception that you could use the names of God, even the ones, let's say, there's a certain name that's associated with kindness. And some people think that if I just say that name over and over again, that I'm going to bring kindness into my life. That's not true. You can meditate on the name, but saying God's name, unfairly or improperly is not good. There are many names that we're not to say ever at all, and people that practice trying to say these names will for sure be damaged spiritually and physically. It's very likely that they're going to have financial problems and all sorts of other things like that through misuse of spiritual teachings. Certainly when it comes to God's names. in general, it could be, I don't know, I mean, I'm not trying to answer everyone's problems with, you know, if somebody is doing certain spiritual practices that we're gonna try to describe later, attaching themselves to certain, you know, spiritual entities and controlling them, these things are the first cause brought down in, you know, for having physical problems, spiritual and mental or emotional problems, financial also. These things are not, we don't live in a world where we want to control the angels. The angels are jealous of us. The demons are, you know, are dangerous. We don't want, even though humans have the ability to control and tell angels and demons what to do and where to go and other things like that, we don't want to be involved with them. We don't want to come close to those things directly, because demons are bad and angels are jealous. Why are they jealous of us? This is a very important idea. Angels, in the spiritual realm, we humans have a very important part. We humans are greater than angels in the sense that we have freedom of choice. We can do good things. Angels are like robots. They're spiritual, you know, spiritual computers that have a certain job, and they basically have to do what they're told, and they don't have any real freedom of choice. We humans are God's like ultimate centerpiece, and our purpose in this world is to be above angels. And that's why we have the power to control angels. There is such a concept. We have the power to control angels because we're above them inherently. Why is it in this physical world we feel like we're below them? We'll discuss that later. But basically it's because our job is in the centerpiece. If you take a circle, and you take a dot, make a dot in the circle, and make a big circle around, and put a stick at the center of the circle and move it a tiny drop, right? What happens? You take a stick, move a tiny drop, it'll go all the way from here. A tiny move on the bottom will make a massive move up there. We're at the center point, the most physical point we'll describe in a moment, soon. We're at the most physical point of existence, and we make a tiny move in this physical existence of ours. We have the power to make tremendous spiritual fluctuations in the spiritual world. That's much greater than the angels, who are not sitting at the center point of creation, like we're gonna describe. Okay, let's.
Excuse me, Rabbi.
Yeah.
When you said we can control the angels, is that a level of manifestation?
What do you mean?
When you manifest things in your life, right? Is that accessing, controlling these divine forces?
Angels, we are sometimes controlling angels in our everyday life, but not directly and not forcing them, so to speak, to do our bidding. The angel of, you know, of wealth, I don't know, the angel of, you know, of certain types of powers, a human being has the power to call upon the angel, right, and to command him to do something.
Isn't that what
Don't do that.
Isn't that what Solomon did with the rings of Solomon?
Oh yeah, wait. I'm not sure about the rings of Solomon, and I don't know where that. I haven't found a source for that yet. But the holy rabbis of previous generations, and even the non-Jews we're going to speak about the history of Kabbalah and how it developed. They had the power to control angels. If a person is 100% pure in every single way, the angels can't really be jealous of them. They could be jealous, but they can't really touch them, because in that way a person has cleansed himself. You can imagine like a superpower, a super strong, powerful being, which we are, if a person is completely spiritually clean. Completely. That was only in the times of the Holy Temple, where they actually used to battle. The Jews would battle against the Romans and whatever they were coming to fight against them without superpower. King David was able to kill 1,000. He was able to kill 900 people with one blow. How was he able to do that? It could be he didn't use angels per se, but he was certainly allowed. He was completely spiritually clean. He was able to command the forces of nature because of his complete spiritual cleansing. That in a clean way, in a kosher way, the angels wouldn't be upset with him. They understand that he's only out for God's. It says in the Talmud that he was very upset that he couldn't kill 1,000. It's like, you read that, it's like, sounds strange. Kill 900 people with one blow. That's obviously something spiritual. That's something like super powerful, but he couldn't kill 1,000. It's like, what was bothering him so much? Just hit twice. You got 1,800. What's the big deal? The answer is very simple. He didn't have the spiritual power, and that's what bothered him. He didn't have the spiritual power. As we spiritually perfect ourselves and cleanse ourselves, we uplift ourselves from the rest of humanity. We become superhuman, super different than certainly what I've been seeing and goes on in Manhattan, you know, which maybe isn't much to say, but that's something that's our ultimate purpose, our ultimate goal, and this is what we're going to learn in this class, associating, fusing the spiritual and physical together, which is like the ultimate purpose and existence in the world. Okay, so now we're going to speak about just a little bit about the historical development of Kabbalah, and we're going to start jumping into more practical things in a few moments. So at the beginning of history, of human history, Adam was created in the Garden of Eden, and he was a prophet. He was able to speak to God, and it wasn't just that God came to him and spoke to him, but he doesn't speak to me, is that his spiritual world and his spiritual perception was on a very, very high level. Prophets don't become prophets just because God, wants to talk to you. It's because you're there. You're holding in such a spiritual world that you're able to communicate. So Adam was created as the prototype man, the perfect man without any spiritual or physical blemishes. He had no evil desire. He didn't even have a innate evil desire to eat from the tree of of good and evil, which he wasn't supposed to eat from. Now, what happened was he knew all of Kabbalah, basically. Certainly not more than what I know. He knew all these secrets, and these things. After he ate and was kicked out of Garden of Eden, it's a very important part in history to understand. But he passed on the secrets to his children, and everybody understood and practiced these secrets in a way that was appropriate for them. They understood it on their own level, in their own way better than anything that we could explain today or anything we could understand, because their existence was very different. Okay. That passed on from generations to generations until it got misused. It started getting misused with idol worship. And this is basically where they used the spiritual powers of different entities, and they associated themselves with that entity, and they served that entity. In the beginning, it was in order to get to higher spiritual levels and to get to God Himself, to Hashem. But that is forbidden in any case. Even if you think that it's not kosher for anybody. We have to understand, and we're going to learn here how to tap into the God's spiritual power in everything, even in physical objects. And that is not idol worship. There's a very fine line. We're going to describe what it is and how to, because okay, we're going to talk about that later, I guess. So this was passed on. It became misused. The world kind of split into, most of the world was idol worshippers at that time, and the Jewish people, Abraham, and others, I think also one of the sons of Shem and Aver, the two sons of Noah, they were also pure and kosher, and basically all the world was divided into two. The Jewish people then came out of Egypt, the whole story. When they got the Torah was a new revelation of the secrets of Kabbalah and the written word of the Torah, which is the Bible, like the written words, on a completely different level. This is the teachings that was passed on from generation to generation until today. Now these secrets, things have been changing over the generations, and the secrets in the beginning were in a way that if we were to sit with Adam, if we were to sit in Abraham's tent, and he was teaching everybody meditation and Kabbalah and all these things, if we were to sit in their tent and try to learn from him, you wouldn't understand a word of what he's talking about. Like, it wouldn't make any sense to you. You wouldn't understand like what his whole existence and the world that they lived in and the type of people they were was so spiritually different that we don't understand these things. We couldn't relate it, we wouldn't know how to do it, or we wouldn't have the spiritual tools to do it, even if he could try to explain to us. At the time of, from Moses, where the Torah was taught, until the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, Kabbalah was taught also on a very different level, maybe not as abstract as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but it was brought down a little bit more. They were telling it over in stories and metaphors and other things like that, where you might feel like you have some type of understanding of these things. Afterwards, Kabbalah was taught by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar. The Zohar is the first teaching that came out openly, revealing the secrets of Kabbalah and how it fits in with the Torah. that has parts that are very difficult and very high, not for everybody, and some parts that are, that are fine for everybody. That was also in very, like in terse form, so to speak. You got the principles, kind of. That was studied until around 500 years ago, I think, when the Arizal came, and he got revelations again from Elijah the prophet, and he wrote and explained the system in a completely different way, systematic. Now afterwards, what the holy people are doing from generation to generation afterwards, they were bringing Kabbalah down in order that we could practice it, in order that we could understand better how to live Kabbalah in our lives. That's something that finalized with the Rabbi Baal Shem Tov and Rabbi Nachman, who taught these things very, very practically. Some of these teachings we're going to teach. Okay, now we're going to start getting into, that was all introduction. I hope it wasn't too much. It wasn't too heavy. I know it was a little bit. Now we're going to start getting into, this is going to be more, what is true prosperity? What is true success? There's nothing else but everyone's looking to be happy, everyone's looking to be full and satisfied with the world around them. So what does it mean to be lacking? What does it mean to be empty and to be dark? When a person looks at his bank account and he sees minuses or something very small, how does that translate into our everyday life? So we're going to describe now where the root of lack, the root of emptiness and darkness, and this is in all areas, in physical and financial in particular also. Most people's lack are completely in their heads. I had a dream once, and a very interesting dream, and I saw in the dream Elijah the prophet, and I'm not a prophet myself, but this is what I saw. I tell you, I saw Elijah the prophet, and he was white like a ghost. I had never seen such a thing before in my life, and he took me to a room, let's say the size of this room, and I asked him to see what are the holy people going to look like in the future. He brought me to a room like this, and I saw like a little ledge, like the whole room was made of dirt. And I saw a little ledge like on the floor, like on the side, and there were people studying Torah. People were doing like sitting down on the dirt floor, and they were studying. And I saw and I felt the happiness. I felt the real like spiritual upliftment there. And he said, this is what it's going to be like. The ultimate happiness is when a person is able to connect to the light of Hashem, the light of the universe, which is the light of Hashem that's inside of everything. This is the ultimate, and when a person looks at the world in a materialistic way, it is the ultimate antithesis to this, and it's something that it will bring an end to only lack and not prosperity. Prosperity is when we are going to bring. So I'd like to continue. Let's see. Okay. Let's describe the creation of the world and understand where physicality came from, and why physicality is basically the root of all of our emptiness and all of the darkness. In the beginning, this is what we're going to see here. In the beginning, there was only the light of Hashem. And this is the consciousness of godly consciousness. If we could imagine for a moment, and this is an important meditation, the first meditation, basically, that you could imagine, is imagining complete, pure, blinding light. What does this mean? We say God, in Judaism, we say God is one. God is, what does it mean to be one? If there's something else, then there has to be another side. If there's something outside of him, there has to be another side. So in the beginning, God was the only existence in the whole world. All of his light was filled in all of creation, all of existence. And since his light was filled in everything, there was no space for anyone else to exist, or for anything else to exist. Now, since God was good, and he wanted to do good, he had to make space for others to exist. This space he did by hiding his light. So we're going to, and then that's the first thing he did. He hid his light. This next thing he did was he associated with the space that he created, his hidden light, the place that he hid himself. He associated with that, and inside that he created the worlds. So if we could play the video a little bit. if you could turn off the sound.
What?
You could turn off the sound if you want. It's just this is, if you could see,
Yeah.
very important animation. This is God's light. There's nothing else. That's the first. That's a good one, right? These animations I did myself, so a little bit like they're basic, but I use PowerPoint.
You can mute the
Mute the sound.
You can mute the sound, yeah. Okay, so the first thing that God did in creating the world, in preparation for creating the world, and this is like the most important thing. Okay, you can pause it? You can pause it now?
Yeah.
Was he created space. Now this is, if you look at that space there, it's, if you look, wait, first you have to understand, the ultimate light gives no space for anyone's consciousness, because there's only one consciousness, the consciousness of the ultimate light. This is the first thing that ever existed, God's light. He was the one who created, he wanted to create, to create beings, external beings, so to speak, in order that he should bestow good to them. And he created space in order to have a place for them to exist. Because our consciousness would not be able to exist if our world, if we could imagine, and this is the first meditation that I would like to do, and these things are things that, like, I've studied this, these are like, sounds like I'm explaining in a few minutes, but these are things you have to really think about and really connect to in order to be able to experience it. And it's something that you could actually experience the concept of ultimate blinding light. And this is not just, you could imagine, you have to understand all the goodness. This is all the goodness and all the ultimate light that we're ever going to see in this whole world is included in that light. The light of the original light. In Kabbalah, the languages, it's called the infinite light, the Ein Sof, the unlimited light. This light is light that really continues to permeate throughout the space that he created. We have to understand what is the space that he created. This is the fundamental for all of our physical existence, because our physical existence is going to be within this space. So space is a little bit of a misconception, a limitation. How he limited his light was not that he pulled back his light, where you can't say that there's a space there on that screen where God doesn't exist. What he did was he hid his light. So let's imagine, kind of, I think that this is like a person meditates, let's say, or hypnotizes himself, so they don't feel childbirth. They don't feel the pain of childbirth. Does it mean that the pain isn't going up the nerve endings? No, it just means it's not felt, it's not experienced. What God did was he limited the visualization, the experience of his light, limited the consciousness of his light. His light is everywhere, as it was in the beginning, but what he did was he created a new thing. The new thing was called darkness. This darkness is very important to understand. What is the darkness? The darkness is, I like to call it dark light, or we're going to see more perfectly, it's a material, or it's an action that hides the light. So it is a something. Some people say nowadays in the physics world, it looks like, I'm not sure if it'll always be like this, but it looks like darkness is the absence of light. But it's not, because there is light everywhere, just in some places it is not visible. That place that is not visible is going to be the place that we exist. The physical worlds, the spiritual worlds. If the light is going to be blinding everywhere, nothing can exist. No spiritual being can exist within infinite light. It basically becomes like dissolved and enveloped and completely nullified in that infinite light. This infinite light is everywhere. Everywhere. There's no place that doesn't have this infinite light, just the difference between the space that creates and all the space and time and the physicality is all created by different levels, and we're going to see later in the next step, of hidingness of the light. Now, if we just have this space, the world the way it is there are two materials in the world, so to speak. The energy of the creator, which is the infinite light, and there's the energy that's hiding that light, which is what we're calling dark matter, right? Afterwards, the next step is, he's not going to leave it like this, because then again, there's light, and there's not seeing the light, but there's no creation, there's no new being. If you press...
Is the metaphor to this kind of like you need to create space? Like we have to create space?
Wait, this is another important principle in Kabbalah, is since these ideas are very, very abstract, God made the world in a way that is holographic, I don't know, hologram, I think, not hologram. What is it called? Where you cut into little pieces, and it has where a microcosm, where every single thing that we're teaching here will apply in every way in your life. For example, let me just give you an example of this. The process of God creating the world is the process that we bring out our desires into this world. The infinite light that we're discussing here is what we call God's desire. Without describing exactly why and how, it's his ultimate desire for ultimate good, and that's like his first relationship that we have is ultimate only good. Everything is only good. That's God's ultimate desire, that everything should only be good. His second desire was there should be a space for existence, a dark matter, a place, a platform for human beings, for spiritual reality, for all the upper worlds. So we also go through the same process. We create the same process. God made us in the image of, man is created in the image of God. What does that mean? In our lives, we go through the process of creation. We go through the process of the 10 spheres, which we're not really going to discuss so much in this class probably. We go through this process all the time. This process of creation of the world is something that's like fundamental for our existence. Ultimately, let's give an example. A person has a desire to do something. This desire is like, I want money, let's say. How does he bring that desire for money into fruition? If he just sits here and says, I want money, he's basically, in some way, he has a desire, an unlimited desire, wants money. Very general, not formulated, not practical, nothing. You're not going to do anything with that. The guy also begging on the street also wants money, He's not doing it. Maybe he actually is doing something, sitting there begging. But I said everybody is like, it's like people want things, right? How do we bring our wants into actualize them? The same way God did. God made us in the image of man. God made us in the image of him, right? How do we do it? We limit our wants and we say, hey, I have to now constrict myself, not just to want. I want money. I have to say, okay, now I'm going to hold myself back and I'm going to limit this want to start thinking about how, practically, what are the steps of being able to do it. The first thing you're going to have to do is limit the want, because if all you're going to be focused on, your consciousness is on the want itself, you'll basically be holding in this world of like infinity. You're just in the desire. You stop the desire for a moment to think, how can I do it? Thought is not want. When a person thinks, he is not only in the world of desire, he's in the world of thought. So we stop to think for a moment. Stopping to want gives place to think and feel. What should I do? Analysis. This is something that, this is not the main topic, but this is very important to understand how we translate the system of, God's system in creating the world and how we translate it into our own life. When we do this, just on a very important thing, we have to know that if I sit down and I want money, I have to know and I'm talking about wanting in a plan like to get, I have to know that I should be connecting to God's infinite want. If I have an infinite want for money. Most people don't have infinite wants, and I would say that their desire for money would fit somewhere much more lower down. We're not going to study today, but the infinite want, for example, of a Jew, just to give you the desire of a Jew, and maybe this is a definition of a Jew, is his infinite want is only to be close to the Creator. This is something that's all he wants. That's really his. If you go deep down, what is his existence? Now this is something that a Jew connects to in a way where in this infinite want. If you know what your infinite want is, then you should make sure to connect it to God's infinite want. Because let's say a person really is, my whole existence is to make money. Let's say a person decides that. That's fine for a non-Jew. Again, I can't suggest it just because there's the whole world out there, and I wouldn't think that it's a good thing to do. But if a person had such a desire and says, you know what, I want to be a good person and everything, but I feel like my root existence is to make money. So he has to realize that this want is very much in line. He has to match it up. He has to relate to God's infinite want. In relating to God's infinite want, he kind of fuses the two together, and as long as he does it in a good, kosher way, kosher doesn't mean not eating pork. Pork is totally fine to eat for non-Jews, totally fine. There's no reason not to. Maybe there are reasons, no specific reason, but a person associates himself in every movement that he makes to God and to his creation, then he uplifts himself in his ultimate wants, and he says, you know what? My ultimate want to make money is part of God's master plan. He created me with that ultimate want. I'm just taking something very physical so everyone can understand, right? That want to make money. I'm a Jew. I know I was taught in the Torah that my ultimate want, sometimes it's not so obvious, but my ultimate want is just to be close to, to God. But if a person's ultimate want was not to have that, was to spread love and peace in the world, that's their ultimate want. So they have to understand that they're part of this master plan, and their ultimate want in some way relates to God's ultimate want to create good in the world. And when I say I'm part of this master plan, I'm joining in this master plan, my ultimate want really parallels the ultimate want of the Creator. What I'm actually doing is I'm fusing the two together. And ultimately, my ultimate want will get energy, and I'll actually be able to strengthen myself and say, my ultimate want is not simple anymore. My ultimate want to do money, or and we're talking about a positive thing, generally making money is also positive, or a person's, making the world run. The world runs on money nowadays. That's just on a very, very simple level, superficial type of level. This is the way the world runs. And to connect even mundane things to the Creator and to the Kabbalistic stages will actually uplift us and enable us to draw energy. Because what do I do now? Now I say, my want to make money, or my want to spread love and peace, or whatever it is in the world, or to heal people, or that marketing is is also a very important thing. We're basically connecting people, which we're going to see. I hope that we're going to explain the next step in this in the video, is the idea of the connection. Because right now God just created space, but he didn't connect to the space. He didn't re-involve himself in the space. But when a person does this, when a person connects to the upper worlds in a way that he understands that he's fulfilling part of the will of this upper will, the will of the infinite light, then he can now draw upon himself and his actions infinite amounts of energy and power, because it's not cut off from the eternal energies of the world. The eternal energy of the world is the ultimate light. Ultimate light, and all that we're going to explain later, the sphere is the world, which is basically channeled down in through the teachings of the Torah and Kabbalah. When a person is able to latch into that, he says, you know what, I don't want to wake up this morning. I'm a little tired. I stayed up late last night. I had a few drinks or whatever it was. If a person says, wait, you know what? My desire to do good business and to really get successful in the world is not simple. My desire is also, I matched it in with the master plan. My desire is part of God's master plan. I attach myself to the ultimate light. I'm able to now draw and say, you know what, I have to get up, not because I don't feel well today, I'm not a little bit tired, but I have to understand what my master plan is. I have to understand what my personal plan is and how I'm going to come to fulfill that. And in doing that, I'm participating in the master plan of Hashem. Okay, when a person, let's continue on in what we call the metaphor, which again, the picture of the light is described a little bit longer. If you press play on the video. The next thing he did was he came into the light to associate himself with the light. And that is, some things which we're not going to describe so much, he came in and with a fine line, okay, he came in and he did all sorts of different things. We're not going to describe. He basically is now building the world with a fusion of light and darkness. This is the world that we live in now. Just going to see the light came in. This is God's light. And now you can pause. Pause. Okay. Now, this is a beginning. Basically, you could imagine. It's kind of hard to, without getting too much into so many details, but basically now God is creating a relationship with the creation, he's creating creation basically, and the creation is a fusion of light and the hidingness of the light. This created form. If you see on the picture, you see form of lines, form of circles, these Kabbalistic pictures and everything like that. Just to give you an idea of where we're holding, if you look at the bottom of that bottom circle, the bottom of that, the 10th or 11th circle on that image there, we're like the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. The physical world that we live in is the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. I can't maybe like 5 or 6 times of that circle over there. So in the galaxies are not even like on the map. I just want to say like all of existence, all the galaxies, everything science ever studies, will just come over here.
Yeah.
We'll have a pointer in here. Okay. See, we're all the way down here, right over here, and the physical world. This is a map of the spiritual world. The physical world is like not even. It doesn't even have a place on the map because
It's
we're
so
not.
small.
Yeah. No, it's not that. Yeah. It's not that. It is very very small, but it doesn't have. Doesn't have an actual map. It doesn't take up space. It doesn't take up spiritual space. So we're basically all the way down here. These are other levels where the way it works is as the world perfects itself, the world goes up in the different, climbs up in the different spiritual worlds until the world is completely perfected, where the light kind of recombines with the darkness. In any case, all the bad stuff only takes place, right down here, and nothing else is, is really bad at all. So. This, yeah.
It's interesting that if you go linear, it's 7 layers, just like the 7 chakras, right? Where you have lower levels and higher levels.
So I would describe the 3. Just if you want to ask about these things, I don't know if you're. I'll tell you the 10. Just run down the 10 spheres. This is the top one. The top one relates to the idea of will, ultimate, like desire, what we were speaking about before. It relates also to the light, the infinite light. This is ultimate will and ultimate desire, purpose. It's not something that you regularly just walk around thinking, I want to go get a hamburger. It has nothing to do with this. This is like ultimate, above your mind, above your thoughts. You could control it a little bit. It's something that's very, very high. These 3 are intelligence, the right, left, and center brain. They relate to the physical body in that way. This is obviously not, we're talking about how it relates to us a little bit. These are not God's, these are God's relationship with the world within this frame. Then there's the right arm, left arm, the body, the right, the right leg, I guess? Oh, sorry, look at it. The right leg, the left leg, the sexual organ, and the malchus, the receiver. This is 3. Basically, these 3 on the bottom have to do with giving. These 3 are the energies, power, like power to give, power to withhold, strength and different strength and power. This is like teaching. When a person wants to give over, then he uses these 3 spheres, so to speak, these 3 energy for it to give over, and this is the receiver. So ultimately, this is the purpose. This is the mind. This is called the heart, and the different energies in the heart. We have a will to do, a will to receive, or other things like that. Not to give and to receive, but like to push forward or to hold back. And this is giving over, and this is the receiver. That's basically the 10 elements, so to speak, of God's relationship with the world. And he relates to us in his godly way, meaning he also has a will, so to speak. He also has thoughts. It says very clearly his thoughts are not like our thoughts, and his actions are not like our actions. And he has kindness and harshness. He has when in giving over, he has giving over, where he gives over the teachings and the spirituality, and he has receivers. What are the receivers ultimately? That's us. We are holding here in this receiving, we're on the receiving side of God's light and God's existence. But even in here, again, there's 10, every one is broken down into another 10. We're somehow at the bottom of the bottom over here. But we have our own, we're creating in this image, so to speak. Okay, you could keep that on if you want.
Play? Should I play it?
No, you don't have to play it. No, the next. No, you don't have to play it. So. Okay, now that he went into create, let's say all the creation is now inside the space of that he created of darkness. You could see these are like, probably, you can leave it there. That's good. So now our world, you press play, I think. No, you don't have to press play. Go back to the previous video. Yeah. So now the world that we live in today has 2, we could say, there are 3 now elements in creation. There's the ultimate light, there's ultimate darkness, and there's a fusion of the 2. The fusion of the 2 is where most of our existence is. This table has some light and some hiddenness of the light. It would not be able to, if it had only hiddenness of the light, you wouldn't see it, it wouldn't be here. If it only had light, then again, also it wouldn't be here. This is something that, that the whole world lives in. We're going to describe later how we're going to attach ourselves to some of this light. The science, physics, and all these other things, they study only the physical side, the hiddenness of the existence. Meaning they're not studying the light that's inside this table. They're studying how the darkness relates, how the darkness works. Because what are they studying? They're not studying anything about light of spirituality or of God. They're understanding how the material works. And this material is the darkness. So the material that this table is made out of cannot be light. We don't say that God's light is this material which kind of materialized. We see here, in this, if we follow the process, God's light does not materialize into physicality. No such thing. Physicality is a little bit of hiddenness of the light, with a little bit of the light giving it some type of form and use, and all the good things come from the light that's inside. When a person's study of science is complete study of darkness, so to speak, we are studying the dark side of creation. It's not evil. It just means only places where God is hidden. So that's the Eastern philosophies, as far as I understand. They have this concept of yin and yang, which is a type of balance, which if you kind of look at this picture, you'll see, if you think about it, that everything inside the circle really has some type of fusion of darkness, dark matter, and light. This concept is only true in a sense. The concept of the two, there's always, of having the two forces of good and darkness, let's say. I don't know, I'm not familiar with Eastern meditations, Eastern religion so much, but this idea of having good and evil, darkness and light mixed up in everything is only within the framework of within the space that God gave us. But since God is above that, it's ultimately not true that everything has a balance. Because everything can be attached, we can attach ourselves to the ultimate light inside everything. This is a power that God gave us. God gave us the power to attach ourselves to the ultimate light inside everything, to bring out that light and to change our physical reality with attachment to that light. We're going to soon get to a meditation. Okay, so you got Kabbalah and the teachings of the Torah only focused on the light itself. That doesn't mean, when you understand the light is the root for what's making the changes on the physical world. It's the soul going into the body being the dark matter, and the light going into the body to control and to move the dark matter. The dark matter, your body has no movement in and of itself. When the soul leaves the body falls to the ground. So too, the light of God that's inside creation only moves, and things only happen in this world when the light goes into the darkness and makes it move. So if a person is well versed in Kabbalah, and this is talking about very high levels, I don't know how many people have such knowledge, or if there are people with such knowledge anymore nowadays. If they understood the secrets of Kabbalah and the way the light goes into the darkness, they would also understand every single physical matter that exists in the whole world and its system. Because it's all dictated by the light. All it's doing is taking a piece of clay, so to speak, that was laid out, that was dark matter, and forming it in different ways. And this form was a little bit alive, and the life was coming from the infinite light in and of itself. Okay, ultimately, all darkness is limited, and all darkness will end in the end. God did not create the world for the darkness, and then everything is going to be good. Okay. Now, in explaining this on a more physical level, let's take this table. God didn't just form a clay statue out of this dark matter and then let it go and say, I'm watching over, we'll see you later. What he did was he continually sustains the existence by going into it and giving it life. This means that if we take even something like this physical table, we could know first that inside this table is God's light, giving it energy to exist, giving it power to continue to sustain itself. God's energy that He invests inside creation to sustain itself is not something that, it's very much like the electricity in the monitor, which gives it power to continually show the light. If the light were to stop, then the object were to cease to exist completely. The reason why things things break in the world, and things, after a while your computer breaks or whatever it is because you kind of used up the light that's inside of there. There's a certain amount of light that was here and it was put here for a purpose. When the purpose is fulfilled, the light leaves and the object breaks, and then it goes in the landfill, and whatever little pieces are left. Okay, now let's get to, I would say,
Just make a suggestion. Perhaps at 2 o'clock we could take a break for a half an hour and come back at 2:30. I don't know if you want to do the meditation before the break, or will you come back?
Well, I'll tell you. Right. So I'll tell you. I didn't. Let me just. What the plan? That was all introduction. We're finished with introduction now.
Well,
now we're going to start.
You can continue the introduction. I'm just suggesting whether you want to do the meditation that we talked about.
Right. So let's. We could do the first meditation. Let's do the first meditation. I would say it would be. It's a very good meditation. I'll tell you about what it is and how we do it. And then we're going to get into. Right now, we still did not get into changing our outside world. We just got into understanding, and I hope that it's clear. Maybe it's a little bit a hit and run kind of thing, but we understand that there is ultimate energy, ultimate light inside the whole world, everywhere. The only thing is that it's hidden. All we have to do is tap into it. Once we realize that there's infinite light there, just it's hidden, the world changes for us. And we could walk down the street and we could say, I know there's ultimate light everywhere. We're going to qualify that a little bit later. This meditation can be done in 2 ways. And the one way is intensely, and one way is continually. The and this is all meditations that we're going to speak about, or both have these 2 aspects pretty much. Intensity is what we're going to do here today. The continual is when you kind of have it in your mind as you go through your day. It's something that will help you connect and and continue to draw energy from ultimate knowledge of ultimate light hidden behind everything in the world. I was very upset when I was practicing certain things. I was like, this is the reality. When I study science, I have no problem understanding there's atoms inside everything, and let's say being conscious and aware of it. I have no problem thinking that Coca-Cola is bad for me, and I don't forget sometimes. Why is it? For some reason, we'll describe later. Maybe we'll discuss it. That it's very hard for us to do these things. It's hard for us to consciously, continuously be in touch with the light to practice it. So what we do is we take a certain amount of time during the day to meditate. And what we have to meditate on is this knowledge. The first meditation is going to be this knowledge of God's ultimate light everywhere. If a person does this, absolutely, he can attain tremendous, tremendous things. I could tell you some stories, and it's important to hear maybe a little story before we do the meditation. We'll still have, a meditation shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, so we have a few minutes to start. Once the rabbis were walking in... this is a slight twist on the rabbis. A big rabbi was walking with his family in World War II, and the Nazis were coming out to get them, and it was like they had to pass a roadblock, and the rabbi said to his family, he said, we have to think about one thing. We have to think about God. We have to think about God's light, right? He was thinking about God's name in particular, but even thinking about God's ultimate light, when a person is conscious of God's ultimate light at that moment, and he's aware of God's ultimate light here in this world, everywhere with him, then nothing bad can happen to you. This is a guarantee. This is something that's real. It's something that's it's hard to do it intensely. Ultimately, it's very hard. But there are stories in the Talmud. It says there was once a man who was on a boat, and a witch came onto the boat and said to the rabbi from the Gemara on the boat, and he said from the Talmud on the boat, he said, the witch said, I'm going to cast a spell on you and hurt you, and he said, don't worry, you can't touch me. God's everywhere. God's ultimate light is with me. When a person is conscious of this, then evil forces and other magical powers or any angels or any spiritual force cannot touch him. Why? He's in touch. He's tapped into the ultimate light above everything, above all of existence that we know, including angels and everything. One more story, a real story from my rabbi's rabbi. He had a back problem. He was a famous author of the explanation of the Zohar, the most famous explanation of the Zohar, called Sweeter Than Honey. It's in Hebrew. called Sweeter Than Honey, and he was a very big Kabbalist. He heard about Eastern doctor, in the East somewhere, that cured a certain problem which he had in his back. So he decided to go see the doctor. He went in and he saw a very strange sight. He saw people walking into the doctor's office bent over, like with back problems and leg problems and all sorts of issues, and they would literally, 15 minutes later, they would walk out straight, perfectly fine. He was concerned that maybe magical powers of impure sorts are here, and again, there is a discussion. I don't want to so he decided he was going to go in there. He's just going to think about God, and he thought about this ultimate light, or basically God's existence being the only existence in the whole world. The doctor, he lied down on the table. He figured like this: if it's magical powers, so they can't hurt me when I'm doing this. And if it's not magical powers, then it'll work, right? Whatever the doctor does. He lied down on the table. The doctor put his hands over him. I'm not trying to, say anything about any other spiritual practice or healing of any sort. And the doctor said, like, something's wrong here. I can't. You're doing something that's stopping me from doing my work. And the doctor got upset at him. He said, what are you thinking about? And he said, oh, I'm just thinking about God. What's wrong? Everything's fine. He's like, no, stop thinking about that. He said, think about me. Think about something in the room. Think about something else. Stop thinking about, And the rabbi refused, obviously. Jewish people have they have to be very careful about interactions with other spiritual entities or other spiritual powers. So it is a tremendous, tremendous success. I've personally used it in many different ways. Sometimes it takes a tremendous, like a powerful meditation to save yourself from problems. Other people that I've seen have saved themselves from problems in this way, and it's a miraculous thing. It's very important to understand more about God and how he, what he wants from us, kind of to be able to connect more fully. But this is, again, the tip of the iceberg. Everyone could do this meditation. This is a fact, a true scientific, spiritual fact. I'm saying like that. And nowadays we see there's energy in everything. There's ultimate atoms can blow up the whole world with 2 or 3 atoms. And they're finding more and more as they get deeper. So they're finding that there's ultimate energy inside the world. It doesn't really add up all the other calculations, because really there is ultimate energy. It's coming from the outside. I just spoke to a Chinese doctor, acupuncturist, and she was reading a certain book about Torah, anatomy of the soul, which is basically describing how spiritual aspects of the body and other things, how it relates. And she said to me that everything she was learning in her acupuncture classes were the same as what it says in this book, except it didn't connect it to the Torah, and it didn't connect it to ultimate power. She was describing to me, and I'm taking her word for it, but I'm just telling you what she said, that in these Chinese medicines, they were speaking about there is energy from somewhere. They don't know where it's from. I heard also the Dalai Lama, someone went to him and he said, and they asked, like, why don't you believe in these types of things in Kabbalah? It's like, we teach what we see, what we experience. We never got there. We never got to the ultimate light. Nobody really could ever get actually to the ultimate light. He would cease to exist. He would die. It says, no one can see me and live. It's something those are much more lower levels. But like ultimately, a person would not exist if you were to step out of that circle. You just wouldn't exist. You would be ultimately nullified with the light of Hashem, which is great. But you're just not here doing what you're supposed to be doing. So with this, I would like to practice this meditation. The first thing in the meditation is to take a moment to clear your mind before we bring in the light. And there are many different ways you could do this meditation in any way that you'd like, as long as in the end, the purpose is that you're going to get to an ultimate consciousness. All that's going to be in your consciousness is the ultimate light of Hashem. When you do this, you're actually going to reach, you could learn, again, as you learn, you kind of have to build a relationship. It's not something, I don't know how everyone on their spiritual levels, this is not something that you pop into and you try one time in a Kabbalah class for the first time, and maybe some people are more in tune, physically or spiritually, some people are less. So I personally would suggest at this intense meditation to do it with your eyes closed. So I would say like this. I would say how we're going to do it. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to first take about a minute to clear our minds. And then, once we clear our minds, not too intensely, you don't want to do it you can fall asleep or I don't know, you clear your mind for a little bit. And then we're going to start bringing the light into our room around us, and spreading out until we imagine this is just a technique to do it. You can use any technique you want as long as in the end. You're just basically getting to the ultimate light. We're going to spread the light into all of the universe and then bring it into ourselves until we kind of nullify our own consciousness, until all we're aware of is complete, pure, blinding light. Okay, so let's take 1 minute to do this. I'm going to guide you in this type of method, and I'm going to speak. I'm not going to be doing the meditation per se. It's going to be hard for me to do at the same time. But close your eyes and clear your mind. If any thoughts come up, just don't fight them. You just ignore them. You just push them to the side. You just keep on relaxing your mind. Okay, now slowly, I want you to visualize the air in the room being filled with light. Very, very strong light, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the light is spreading, slowly covers the whole building. Spreading further from one street to the next, till it covers further, till it covers all of the city and continues to cover the whole world. From there it goes till space, all of outer space filled with light, expanding till the stars, and further to the ends of the galaxies. Now also, we have to, very important, bring the light into yourself. Fill up your mind with the light and have the light spread down from your mind into your hands, into your feet. And now go back into your mind. Now focus on a point in your mind where there's just light. This light is now in connection with all the rest of the lights, all of creation and out of creation, out of existence. And now the light's getting stronger and stronger. The light is full of goodness, full of kindness. Okay, now let's start with hiding the light from the outer reaches of the galaxy, coming in. When the light comes in, the stars are visible again. Slowly bring the light in. We're coming back to the hiddenness. The light becomes hidden more and more. In your mind and your body and this whole New York City and all of the world is still filled with light. But as the light comes in closer and closer, comes back, the streets around us become real again. Till it comes to this room, the light in the air turns back to regular light, regular air, and our bodies become, from our feet down, the light becomes hidden. Slowly, slowly, we could feel your legs, could feel your arms, and your mind quiet the light till your mind comes back to regular. Now open your eyes. This is intense version. I don't know, we could speak about our experiences. If you, afterwards, when we come back down, we have to take a hint of this experience, because we're not there. When we come back down and we start talking, we're in the regular world, we aren't in that ultimate world of goodness and light anymore. But what we are able to do is there's always an imprint. All spiritual things leave an imprint, like the fingerprints on the, that the police study, or more than that, like your footprint in the sand. Every time you do a meditation, you connect, it's going to leave an imprint on you. It's going to leave something that's going to remind you when you're walking down the street and someone bumped into you and you're like, hey, there's light here, everything's good, everything's okay. And it might, in the beginning, you see a little bit. The more you practice it, this intense version of meditation will help your ongoing version of the meditation. Where the ongoing version is going to be where you walk down the street and you just feel, you feel ultimate light with you at all times. This is, I can't tell you how real this is. This is not, it's not like a psychological meditation. We're trying to attach ourselves to the existence, the true existence of creation. It is, I like to call it scientific. I just get upset at myself, what am I, a fool? I can't realize the reality here. It's like, I don't believe there are cameras here watching me, It's like, I believe you're not going to do anything funny in here because there's cameras. I know the owner of the office, you can look, you can see what I'm doing. It's like, God is everywhere. And His ultimate light is everywhere. That's, this is something that's, it is life-changing. Our connection to this light will, in the bringing out the light in our everyday lives, we'll actually be able to overcome and see miracles in our life. It's hard to explain, but this is like in connection to, when you connect yourself to the ultimate light, then good things happen to you. And you'll see it'll be good. You'll know it'll be good in your heart, and you'll be able to actually see it when it comes. A lot of times, bad things happen to us, and we say, "Oh, this is really bad," and you don't see anything come out of it. When you do it in this way, you'll see if something bad could still happen because you didn't do it 100%. At least you'll be able to see the good that came out of it. So, and if a person does it 100%, there's no way that anything bad can happen to them. This is like things written in the books. I didn't make it up myself. A person who has this knowledge, it's called, the words are Ein od milvado, there's nothing aside from him. There's no way that bad things can happen to him of any sort. This is the rabbis of the classic rabbis, not even the Kabbalists, they say this. This is like, protection. This is a way to, and this will help us get on to the next meditation, which is really, here we're talking about changing our existence, things that directly affect us. Next one, we're going to talk about how our focus on outside things will actually change the outside world in a much more direct way, much more, I would say, down to earth, so to speak, in our everyday lives than the first thing. So I wish us all, give us all a blessing. We should all remember, God's light in everything. We'll have real prosperity, real happiness in every aspect of our lives. And this is the foundation stone that I didn't yet figure out a way to explain it in a more down to jump into, to hands-on how we're going to change the world around us without understanding this, and then being able to attach to this and go on to the next level, hopefully in the next class. Okay.
So this was the foundation, right? For the next?
This was the foundation. I actually thought I was going to get a lot farther and discuss.
Do you have different kind of meditations? Like I heard meditation for the heart chakra.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the chakras, but if you explain to me in more like in.
So she means like the meridian points in the
Right.
Chinese.
Yeah.
So that's one of the chakras is from the heart. So that's the meridian point.
So we could. I could explain to you the heart in Kabbalah, and I could explain to you different things that we could do with the heart to fix the heart and per se. If you could explain to me more what aspect of the heart, so to speak, then there are meditations for, for most problems, every problem really, and everything. There are meditations. There are more specific meditations. This is a very general meditation, but usually you're tapping in most of the later meditations. We're going to tap into the same light, just not infinite, like ultimate. It's not like this, like super powerful, encompassing. Like you can't meditate like this and still think about your money, because there's no money. Like it's all gone. There's only good. There's only light. Later we're going to speak about how we're drawing that light. That was the meditation basically on the three stages that we're describing here in Kabbalah. The first stage is ultimate light. The second stage is space and darkness, and the third stage is the fusion of space of the light and the darkness together. So the next one we're going to discuss more how we affect the light and dark together. Where this meditation was more focused on just connecting to the light. But all the later things, if you don't know what the light is, and if you can't connect to the light, you're not going to be able to draw the light into the physical world. So the first thing is learn to connect to the light, see what the light is, experience it. It's kind of like weightlifting for the karate guy. He needs to have weightlifting. He needs to have physical training in order for him afterwards to fight and to succeed. So. Hope that's.
So you want to break for half an hour?
Sure.
And come back here in half an hour?
Sure.
Work?
Yeah, great.
You guys are welcome to get your food and bring it here, or we have some food here, whatever you guys like. Okay. But we'll see you back here in half an hour. We don't want to miss anything, right?
Okay.
Thank you.